last Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 topic video, we discussed what would be a fitting story if Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 were to come to fruition. Now, of course, in a series, there's always something brand new added within the next iteration. And of course, in this particular case, it would be more than just the story mode. Now, one major thing that Dragon Ball games are renowned for is the combat, because it's super flashy and it's majorly engrossing. Now, in Xenoverse 2, they did up the ante from Xenoverse 1 by adding a few new mechanics. One major thing is the Aura Reverse Dash, or even the Aura Burst Dash, and the most common one, which is Stamina Break. But what could they add to top what they just added in Xenoverse 2? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I have a few ideas and I do want to discuss them with you guys, but once again, just note that these are of my own personal opinion. But with that out of the way, let's get right into it. This first mechanic has actually been in previous Dragon Ball games, but I honestly feel as if it would work well in the Xenoverse series. For now, I'm just going to call it the perfect block reversal. So how it's executed is, you would hold the block button, and if you time it right, you press the light attack button while you're still holding on block. As your opponent attacks, you will end up staggering your opponent, immediately teleport behind them, and then knock them back. So I think it would be a great spacing mechanic for if you maybe have no ki or stamina to find a way to space out your opponent. This could be another option. But that doesn't mean that your opponent is completely out of the fight, because if they time it right, if they Z-vanish properly while you do the attack, then they'll end up sending you flying. But of course, once again, the cycle repeats itself. So it's a decent way to try to gain the edge on your opponent or try to space them out, but at the same time, you do have to be careful, because if they time it properly, they can do a reversal on you and send you flying. Again, this has been implemented in previous Dragon Ball games. One that I can think of on the top of my head is Dragon Ball Raging Blast 2, and it worked fairly well. It was perfectly balanced, it wasn't broken whatsoever, and honestly, it was extremely flashy when it was executed. So if they can tweak it and make it work with the Xenoverse series, then I see this being a really good mechanic, both offensive and defensively. This next mechanic has also been in previous Dragon Ball games as well, but they did add a portion of it into Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, but obviously not to its fullest extent. So I think if they add this small portion, they would fully complete the mechanic, and that is the Aura Dash Cancel and the Aura Reverse Dash Cancel. Now, in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 1, one major issue we had to deal with was the issue with runners. Now, runners were people who would attack you to the point where they had a bit more health than you, and if they flew away for the rest of the battle, they would end up winning the battle. And for some reason in Xenoverse 1, we weren't able to catch up to the opponent. And that is the reason that in Xenoverse 2, they added the Aura Dash and the Aura Reverse Dash, so you can catch up to the opponent and be able to continue the fight. But let's say that you're trying to use it in an offensive sense, and your opponent is expecting you to use it, so they either sidestep out of the way or they snap vanish out of the way. What do? Well, maybe you can try faking out your opponent by canceling the dash. So what you would do is, if you execute an Aura Dash or an Aura Reverse Dash, maybe before you get to your opponent, you would press the block button, and in doing so, that would cancel the dash animation. So that way you manage to get closer into your opponent's zone, but not too close to the point where you can get punished. Now, once again, this has been in previous Dragon Ball games, and the reference I'm using once again is none other than Raging Blast 2. And in Raging Blast 2, this mechanic was utilized heavily. Not only that, but it was majorly balanced as well. So I think that in adding this, they would finally complete the Aura Dash and the Aura Reverse Dash, so that way we have another sense of using it. This next tactic was in the Tenkaichi series and in the Raging Blast series, but since then it hasn't shown an appearance in any other Dragon Ball game, and I don't know why, because it was a good defensive mechanic against blasts, and that is Blast Deflection. Now, let's say that somebody uses a super attack like Kamehameha, or an ultimate attack like maybe Spirit Bomb, or even Final Kamehameha. Normally you can snap vanish out of the way and whatnot, but why not have another option to deflect the attack? Now, this was majorly apparent once again in the Tenkaichi series, and especially in the Raging Blast series, where you could swat the attack out of the way, and normally you would be able to pursue your opponent afterwards. So I think that this would be a good punishment tactic, where if there's a person who utilizes an attack, I guess fairly poorly, you can deflect the attack out of the way and punish them. I think that would be great in the Xenoverse series. Now, I'm pretty sure not many people would be, no disrespect to anybody, but nobody would be foolish enough to just throw out attacks all willy-nilly, but at the same time, it gives you another defensive option to swat out the attack instead of just staying there and taking the entire attack, or just having to snap vanish out the way and maybe getting potentially caught, because that also does happen in Xenoverse 2. So the option to deflect blast attacks would be a nice inclusion in a potential Xenoverse 3. And there was just absolutely no way I couldn't include this last part on my list. A lot of people wanted this feature in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 1, and it wasn't in there. And of course, a lot of people wanted it in Xenoverse 2, and it's currently not in there. But I think in Xenoverse 3, there's definitely a way to make it work, and that is beam struggles. I think beam struggles would be phenomenal in Xenoverse 3, especially if they expand the game even bigger than Xenoverse 2 is. Now, of course, in the Dragon Ball series, one major thing they're also renowned for is the beam struggles, primarily Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan against Cell. I know for a fact that during that beam struggle, a lot of people got hyped because it's either Cell blew back Gohan and the Earth is destroyed, or Gohan blew back Cell and the Earth is saved. And of course, in previous Dragon Ball games, the mechanic has always worked well. But the only difference is, in the Xenoverse series, all attacks are real time. But that doesn't mean that you're not able to combat your opponent, because you should be able to fight back, I guess, a super attack with a super attack, or an ultimate attack with an ultimate attack, much like, let's go with something simple, Kamehameha versus Gallic Gun. Both are blast attacks, super attacks even. You fire them off, if they clash, then you guys are in a beam struggle. And in this particular case, you would spin the control stick or mash the buttons, whichever one they decide to implement, in order to push the blast even further to attack your opponent. And one major thing that I see this working well with is team battles, because team battles are supposed to be hectic, they're supposed to be wild, and they're supposed to be entertaining. And of course, if you have beam struggles going off everywhere, that only intensifies the fun. It intensifies the, I guess, the look, the action, everything about it. Because in the Dragon Ball series, there are things like that going on, like much like super flashy attacks going on one side, and then another flashy attack going on another side. So if they can find a way to incorporate real-time beam struggles in a potential Xenoverse 3, I know a lot of fans would enjoy seeing that in the game, let alone using it. So these are some of the combat changes I would like to see in a potential Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3. Now, once again, guys, these are my own opinions, and I know that there's probably some people who do agree with me, and then there are some people who don't agree with me, and that's perfectly fine, because that's the reason why I'm doing this, because I want to know you guys' thoughts on what you would like to see in a potential Xenoverse 3, because we as a community always want to strive to get the greatest Dragon Ball game ever. And of course, there are plenty of people out there who have ideas that could make that next Dragon Ball game the greatest Dragon Ball game of all time. So that's why I'm doing this with you guys. I want to know you guys' feedback. Let me know in the comment section below. What changes would you like to see in a potential Xenoverse 3? Maybe just generic combat changes, major combat changes, whatever fits your fancy to make it the best Dragon Ball game in your eyes. Let me know in the comment section below, because I would love to hear all of your thoughts. I'd love to see all of them in the comment section. I will try to respond to as many as I possibly can, because I really want to take this feedback into consideration. I want this to be a community effort, and that's why I'm doing this. But nonetheless, guys, I'm Ndukauba. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.